From King's perspective, it didn't feel like just another joke. It felt like he was being placed into a box he didn't ask for, and then laughed at for trying to climb out of it. And that's where everything quietly shifted. Because while the internet moved on like it was entertainment, King didn't. The comments kept stacking up. The edits, the reposts, the debates, it all turned into pressure. Not loud at first, but constant. The kind that sits in your head and grows heavier the longer you ignore it. And then came the moment everything changed. According to the footage now spreading online, King Harris didn't wait for another post. He didn't fire back on social media. He didn't turn it into a caption war. He showed up. No announcement, no build-up, just a real-world confrontation that instantly erased the comfort of the internet distance people thought this beef lived in. The clip is short, shaky, and incomplete, but it's enough. Enough to see body language change. Enough to feel the air tighten. Enough to make it clear this wasn't content anymore, it was conflict. And in that moment, everything fans thought they understood about the situation started breaking apart. Because now the question isn't just what was said online. It's what was said face to face. And according to people claiming to have witnessed it, the viral clip only shows the beginning. They say words were exchanged that never made it to camera. Tones shifted, temperatures rose, and at one point it stopped being about jokes entirely. It became about respect. That's why the internet is now split straight down the middle. One side is saying King walked into a situation he didn't need to step into. That responding at all gave the moment more power than it deserved. But the other side sees it differently. They're saying this wasn't overreaction. It was reaction. Years of being talked about, compared, and indirectly targeted finally boiling over in one irreversible moment. And in the middle of all of it stands 50 Cent, still calm online, still posting like nothing happened. And that silence, that's what's making everything feel even heavier. Because with someone like 50 Cent, silence is never neutral, it's strategic. Fans know that. King likely knows that too, and that's exactly why nobody believes this ends here. It doesn't feel like an ending, it feels like a pause. Like both sides are watching, waiting, measuring what comes next. And that's where things get even more unpredictable. Because if the leaked clip is only part of the story, then there's still a missing piece, something that hasn't surfaced yet. Something that explains why this moment escalated so fast, and why neither side seems interested in fully addressing it publicly. Now the internet is doing what it does best, reconstructing reality from fragments. Slow-motion breakdowns, lip-reading attempts, timeline threads, everyone trying to turn seconds of footage into a full narrative. But the more people dig, the less certain anything becomes. Was this about disrespect or reputation? Was it a misunderstanding that spiraled, or something intentionally provoked? And most importantly, why now? Because timing is starting to look suspicious to a lot of people. And until those answers come out, the tension isn't fading, it's building. Quietly, constantly, right under all the noise. And if history is any indicator, situations like this don't stay quiet for long. They escalate. And when they do, the part the internet didn't get on camera usually turns out to be the part that changes everything. And that's exactly what has people uneasy right now. Because the more this clip circulates, the more it starts to feel like a trigger, not the full story. Just the moment everything spilled over into public view. And in situations like this, what's shown is rarely what matters most. It's what happens off camera that usually defines everything. According to ongoing online chatter and unverified claims from people close to the scene, the face-to-face moment between King Harris and 50 Cent didn't stay contained for long. What looked like a brief confrontation on video allegedly stretched into something more layered. Words exchanged in lower tones, interruptions from people around them, and a shifting dynamic that never fully settles in the footage. But here's the detail that's making everything spiral again. Multiple viewers now believe there was a second turning point in that interaction. Not the initial approach, but what came after. Because after the tension rises in the clip, there's a moment where things appear to pause, a break in movement, a reset in energy, and that's the part people are obsessing over now. Some say that's when a warning was given. Others think that's when boundaries were set. And a growing group of fans believe that's when something was said that never made it into the final viral cut. That missing piece is what's fueling the chaos. And while speculation spreads, both names involved Ray handling it in completely different ways. 50 Cent's side remains almost completely silent on specifics. No clarifications, no confirmations, just the same controlled online presence he's known for. And that silence is being interpreted in two completely opposite ways. To some, it means he's unbothered. To others, it feels like preparation. King Harris, on the other hand, is now in a different position entirely. Whether intentional or not, his name is now attached to a confrontation people are dissecting frame by frame. Every angle of his reaction is being analyzed like evidence. Every pause, every step, every expression is being turned into meaning. And that's where things start getting bigger than both of them. Because now it's not just about what happened, it's about what people think happened. And once the internet fills in those blanks, truth and theory start blending together. Old clips are resurfacing too, which is making things worse. Interviews, past comments, even unrelated moments are being pulled into the current narrative and reframed as signs that this was building up all along. Whether that's accurate or not almost doesn't matter anymore. The story has taken on a life of its own. Now it feels like a setup, like the entire situation wasn't just unfolding, but being watched unfold on purpose. And the second those words land, "You proving my point right now," everything in that room shifts again. Because now, it's not just a confrontation anymore. It's a mirror. According to people who claim to be close enough to hear it clearly, 50 Cent doesn't raise his voice at all. He doesn't chase the argument. He doesn't escalate it in the way people expected. Instead, he stays planted, calm, almost detached, like he's observing the situation instead of being inside it. And that calmness, that's what makes it worse. Because King Harris came in expecting energy, expecting pushback, maybe even tension that would validate how serious he felt the moment was. But what he got instead was something colder, restraint. And restraint in moments like this can feel like disrespect. King steps forward again, this time closer than before. The distance between them disappears almost completely. Now it's no longer a public exchange. It's personal space being tested in real time. People around them start shifting. You can hear background voices rising, overlapping, unsure whether to intervene or just record. And that's when the atmosphere changes from heated to unstable. Not loud, not chaotic yet. Just unstable enough that everyone knows it could go either way. King's tone reportedly sharpens again. He goes back to the original comment, the algorithm line, the thing that sparked all of this. But now it's not about jokes or interpretation. It's about respect. About how words land when your name is the one being attached to them. And that's where you can feel the gap between the two perspectives widen even more. Because from King's side, this is personal. It's reputation, identity, pressure, and frustration all stacking at once. A moment that represents more than just one comment. It represents how he feels he's being seen. But from 50's side, at least based on how he's described in the footage, it doesn't land the same way. He doesn't react with the same emotional charge. He doesn't mirror the intensity. He stays in that controlled, unreadable mode that fans have always associated with him. And that contrast becomes the fuel. Because when one person is emotional and the other stays composed, the emotional one often feels dismissed, even if that's not the intent. Then comes the moment that people online keep replaying. A slight smile from 50. Not a laugh, not an insult, just a brief expression that, depending on who you ask, either meant nothing or meant everything. And that's where interpretation takes over reality. Because in that split second, fans watching the clip start projecting meaning onto it. Some say it was confidence, others say it was provocation, others say it was disbelief. But whatever it was, it becomes the emotional trigger that pushes the exchange further. King moves in again. Now the space between them is gone completely. Voices rise on both sides. Words overlap. The audio in the circulating clips becomes harder to separate, but certain themes keep appearing in breakdowns. Respect, misunderstanding, pressure, perception. And it's no longer just a conversation. It's a collision of narratives. People around them begin reacting in real time, some stepping slightly forward like they expect something physical to happen, others trying to calm the situation while still holding their phones up, because nobody wants to be the one who missed the moment if it escalates. And that's when the most important shift happens. Because according to multiple interpretations of the audio, 50 Cent says something that reframes the entire interaction again. Not louder, not aggressive, just pointed. Something along the lines of Quest. Ironing the reaction itself, turning the focus away from the insult and back onto King's response. And that's what causes the pause. Because suddenly, the argument isn't just about what was said anymore. It's about why it's being taken that way. That's the turning point where the energy doesn't escalate further, it stalls. Like both sides briefly realize they're no longer just exchanging words. They're interpreting each other's intent in completely different languages. And in that pause, everything becomes heavier. Because pauses in moments like this are never neutral. They either lead to resolution or to something worse. And right there, in that suspended second of silence and tension, the clip cuts or shifts, leaving viewers without closure, only fragments. Which is exactly why the internet has taken over the story. People aren't just watching anymore. They're reconstructing it, frame by frame, word by word, expression by expression, trying to decide what was real, what was exaggerated, and what was completely misunderstood. But the deeper they go, the less certain anything becomes. Because every angle adds a different layer, every replay changes the tone, every interpretation rewrites intention. And now the situation sits exactly where viral conflicts always end up. Not solved, not explained, just expanded. And until someone involved finally breaks that silence fully, the internet is left with the same question echoing louder than everything else. Was this really about a comment? Or was that just the moment everything finally spilled over? And that realization hits differently because suddenly, this isn't just a misunderstanding anymore. It feels like something that was always going to happen. Because if that line is true, if "this is what he wanted" was actually said in the background, then the entire moment starts looking less like chaos and more like choreography. Not in a literal sense, not as proof of anything planned end to end, but in the way the internet now reinterprets everything. Cause, reaction, attention, explosion. And once that idea enters the conversation, it changes how people watch the footage. Now every gesture feels intentional, every pause feels loaded, every reaction feels like it belongs to a script nobody fully saw. That's when the situation shifts again, because King Harris isn't just reacting to a comment anymore in the eyes of viewers. He's reacting to a system, a narrative, a moment that, whether planned or not, clearly benefited from escalation. And that's where it gets psychologically heavier. Because once you start thinking you've walked into something expected, your reactions change. You hesitate. You overthink. You start questioning whether your emotions are being read in real time by the person standing across from you. And in that space, between emotion and awareness, the confrontation stops being just a clash. It becomes a test. Meanwhile, 50 Cent stays in that same controlled posture. No panic, no visible shift, just that steady presence that fans have seen for years in different situations. And that contrast is what keeps fueling the debate online. Because one side sees confidence, the other side sees provocation. And neither side is willing to let go of their interpretation. Then comes the next wave, the rumor that there's more footage. At first, people dismiss it like they always do. Extended clip, hidden angle, uncut version, the usual noise that follows viral moments, but this time it doesn't disappear. It grows. And when the second clip finally starts circulating, the entire tone of the conversation changes again. This version doesn't show the buildup. It doesn't show the approach. It drops viewers straight into the aftermath, where emotions are already higher, voices already raised, and the situation already past the point of calm explanation. And that's what makes it hit harder. Because now it doesn't feel like an introduction anymore. It feels like continuation. In this footage, both sides are louder, less controlled, more direct. The energy is no longer about reading each other, it's about being heard over each other. And then comes the line that sends the internet spiraling again. King Harris, visibly frustrated, reportedly says something along the lines of not wanting his name turned into a joke. And in that moment, you can feel what's really driving him, not just anger but perception. The feeling of being reduced, interpreted, packaged into a narrative that doesn't reflect how he sees himself. But 50 Cent's response is what flips the conversation again. Still composed, still not matching the emotional intensity, he delivers something sharper, not louder, but more precise. A kind of statement that doesn't attack the person but questions the framing. And that's where the interpretation war begins. Because now viewers aren't sure if this is disrespect or analysis. Is he dismissing King or dissecting the situation? Is he escalating it or exposing something about how it escalated in the first place? And that ambiguity is exactly what keeps the clip alive online. But the most talked about moment isn't even the direct exchange. It's what happens around it. Because in the background of the second clip, someone allegedly says something that reframes everything again, that the situation is bigger than music. And that phrase spreads faster than anything else. Because bigger than music is where the internet immediately starts filling in blanks. If it's not just music, then what is it? Reputation, influence, industry politics, family dynamics, or simply the collision of two personalities that were never going to interpret respect the same way. And that's where the story stops being linear. It becomes layered. Every new replay adds another meaning. Every slowed-down version adds another theory. Every commentary video adds another angle that sounds convincing enough to believe. Old interviews get pulled back into circulation. Past comments are reframed. Even unrelated moments are reinterpreted as signs that this tension was always building under the surface. And the more the internet digs, the less stable the narrative becomes. Because for every claim that supports one version of events, there's another clip that contradicts it. For every interpretation of disrespect, there's another interpretation of misunderstanding. For every clear answer, there's another question waiting behind it. And that's the point where public perception fractures completely. Now it's no longer about what happened. It's about what people believe happened. And those two things stop matching very quickly. Meanwhile, both names remain in a strange space of partial silence, enough said to spark the fire, not enough clarified to put it out. And that silence becomes its own kind of statement. Because in moments like this, Absence of explanation doesn't reduce speculation, it multiplies it. Which is why the tension doesn't fade. It stretches. It evolves. It waits. And now the entire situation sits at the edge of something unstable again, where one new clip, one new comment, or one new clarification could completely rewrite how everything so far is understood. Because if this really was just a misunderstanding, it's already gone too far to look simple. But if it was, then the internet hasn't even reached the real story yet. This wasn't supposed to go public, but now that the footage is out, there's no putting this back in the box. Because what started as a subtle jab, just a slick comment buried inside what fans thought was casual conversation, has now escalated into something far bigger, something personal, something explosive, and something that could pull two entire camps straight into chaos. We're talking about King Harris, 50 Cent, and a confrontation nobody saw coming until it was already happening. At first, 50 Cent's algorithm comment didn't feel like anything serious, just another one of his signature slick remarks, sarcastic, sharp, easy to laugh off, the kind of line fans repost and move on from. But King Harris didn't move on. He didn't laugh it off, he didn't ignore it, he took it personally. And according to newly surfaced footage now spreading across social media, he didn't respond online, he showed up in real life. Yes, physically. And that changes everything. The clip, allegedly never meant to surface, shows a tense face-to-face moment that instantly divided viewers. No edits, no filters, just raw, uncomfortable energy. You can feel it immediately. This isn't internet talk anymore. This is real tension happening in real time. But insiders claim what we saw wasn't even the full confrontation. There's more. More words, more pressure, and allegedly one exchange that pushed everything past the point of return. Now the internet is in full meltdown mode. Fans are split. Some say King crossed a line by confronting 50 Cent face-to-face. Others say 50 underestimated him and accidentally triggered something he can't control. But if this footage is real, the bigger question is terrifying. Was this random? Or was it inevitable? Because when you zoom out, this moment didn't come out of nowhere. It came from pressure building quietly for a long time. On one side, you've got 50 Cent, an artist who built his entire legacy on dominance, strategy, and psychological warfare. He doesn't just speak, he lands lines that stick. He jokes, he provokes, and somehow he stays calm while everything around him heats up. And most people know better than to engage. But King Harris isn't just most people. He carries a name, a legacy, expectations, pressure, and a spotlight that never turns off. Every move he makes gets amplified, every reaction gets judged, every moment gets replayed. That kind of pressure doesn't stay quiet forever. And it didn't here. The algorithm comment may have sounded general at first, just commentary about industry trends, but fans started connecting dots. The timing, the tone, the implication. Something about artists' attention and how sometimes it's not talent, but visibility that drives success. And suddenly, people believed it was aimed directly at King. Once that idea took hold, the internet did what it always does. It turned a comment into a storyline. Clips were reposted, tags exploded, comments piled up asking for a response, not just encouraging King, but challenging him. And pressure like that doesn't sit still. At first, King stayed quiet. No posts, no live, no reaction. But silence online is never really silence. Behind the scenes, according to people close to the situation, he was watching everything. Every repost, every comment, every interpretation. And what bothered him wasn't just the joke, it was what it represented. Dismissal. Public disrespect. A suggestion that everything he's building can be reduced to algorithm luck. And that hits different when your entire identity is tied to proving yourself. Meanwhile, 50 Cent kept moving like nothing happened. Posting, laughing, acting unbothered. And that made it worse. Because from King's perspective, it looked like he was being brushed off completely, like he didn't even register as a serious problem. And that's where small situations turn into big ones. Because once disrespect becomes public, everything changes. Every post feels like a message. Every silence feels intentional. Every move feels calculated. And soon, people stopped seeing one comment. They started seeing a pattern. Old interviews resurfaced. Past clips got reanalyzed. Fans began building timelines, trying to connect dots that may or may not exist. And the pressure kept building, until it snapped. Instead of responding online like most people would, King allegedly chose something different. He pulled up, and in that moment, everything changed. Because online conflict is noise. But real-life confrontation is different. It removes filters. It removes distance. It forces reality. And when the two finally came face to face, the energy shifted instantly. No jokes, no smiles, no internet buffer. Just tension. King stepped in first, focused, locked in, direct. 50 Cent, calm, almost unnaturally calm. That contrast alone changed the temperature of the room. King went straight to the point, the algorithm comment. No hesitation, no build-up. Just explain it. The room tightened instantly. And 50 didn't react the way people expected. No anger, no defense. Just calm dismissal. And that's what escalated everything. Because when someone comes in emotional and the response is calm, it doesn't diffuse the situation, it sharpens it. King's energy rose. His voice got louder. The tone shifted from questioning to confrontation. Respect, disrespect, public perception, name protection. Everything started coming out at once. Phones went up, people started recording. Nobody wanted to miss a moment. And then 50 smiled. Not big, not dramatic. Just enough. And that tiny expression flipped the energy again. Because now it felt like something deeper was happening. Like 50 wasn't reacting, he was observing. And that's when he allegedly said something that changed everything. "You proving my point right now." That line landed differently. Because suddenly, King wasn't just confronting a comment. He was reacting in real time, exactly the way critics would expect him to react. Emotionally. And for a split second, everything hesitated. Because the confrontation wasn't just emotional anymore. It became psychological. Now it wasn't about who was right. It was about who controlled the narrative. And 50 stayed in control. Calm, measured, watching. While King stood his ground, but with rising intensity. And that's where things took a strange turn. Because someone in the background allegedly said something that changed the interpretation entirely. This is what he wanted. And suddenly, everything became questionable. Was this real conflict or a predictable reaction? Was King responding or being positioned? Because if attention is the goal, then emotion is the fuel. And that's when the internet split completely. Some say King defended his name the only way he could, face to face, no filters, no fear. Others say he walked straight into a setup where the reaction itself was the point. And 50 Cent. He hasn't clarified anything. Just silence, post, subtle captions. And one line people keep replaying. People show you who they are. Now nobody knows exactly who that S aimed at. But one thing is clear. This isn't just a confrontation anymore. It's a narrative war. And the worst part, we still don't have the full story. Because every time something new drops, the situation doesn't calm down. It escalates. And whatever comes next might not just change the conversation. It might completely rewrite it. At this point, people start asking questions they weren't even considering before. Was this really spontaneous, or was it always going to happen? And just when that debate reaches its peak, something else adds more fuel to the fire. Because while the internet is spinning in circles, King Harris still hasn't fully addressed what happened. No long statement, no breakdown, no clarification. Just silence. And that silence is doing something dangerous. It's being interpreted in completely different ways. Some people think he's letting things cool down, waiting for the noise to pass. Others believe he's regrouping, thinking more carefully about his next move. But a growing number of fans think it's something else entirely. That he's realizing something. Something he didn't fully understand in the moment, but is only now starting to see clearly. And if that's true, then what comes next might not look anything like what people are expecting. Because right now, the internet is loud, the reactions are split, the industry is watching closely, and the narrative is still shifting every hour. One thing, though, is becoming undeniable. This situation isn't finished. Not even close. In fact, it's starting to feel like everything we've seen so far was only the surface layer, just the opening act of something much bigger. And if the rumors about what's coming next are true, then the final twist might completely reshape the entire story. Because just when things seemed like they had peaked, when the clips had already gone viral, when the debates were at full volume, when everyone thought the situation was fully understood, something unexpected started surfacing again. Behind all the noise, something else was unfolding quietly. And now, pieces of it are starting to leak out. According to multiple unverified claims circulating online, there was another interaction after the viral confrontation. One that wasn't filmed, wasn't posted, wasn't meant for public consumption. No cameras, no audience, just a small circle. And what allegedly happened there is changing how people interpret everything. Because sources claim the energy was completely different. No shouting, no aggression, no performance. Just conversation. And that alone raises more questions than it answers. Because if the public moment was that intense, why is there a calm aftermath? What changed? What was said off camera that shifted everything? And this is where the story takes its sharpest turn. Because one unconfirmed report, now spreading rapidly online, claims that during this private exchange, 50 Cent said something that didn't sound like an insult or even a diss. It sounded like a warning. Allegedly, he told King Harris something along the lines of, "You've got to understand what game you're stepping into." And that line hits differently depending on how you read it. Is it disrespect? Is it advice? Or is it just reality being stated out loud? Because that's what makes this so unsettling. The meaning changes based on perspective. And suddenly, the entire narrative shifts again. Now, it's not just about a confrontation. It's about awareness, about levels, about how the industry actually works when attention, perception, and influence all collide. And then, just as people are trying to process that, another small moment surfaces online. Not viral, not trending, just noticed. A short clip of King Harris walking, talking to someone off camera. No confrontation, no tension, just movement. And in that clip, he allegedly says one line, "I see it now." That's it. No explanation, no context, no follow-up. But it's been replayed endlessly. Because people can't stop asking, what does he see now? What changed? What clicked in his mind after everything? And suddenly, the entire situation feels different. Because if that moment is real, then maybe the confrontation wasn't the end of anything. Maybe it was the beginning of something else entirely. Something deeper. Something less about conflict and more about realization. And now the conversation has shifted again. People aren't just asking who was right or wrong anymore. They're asking whether this was ever just a clash at all, or whether it was a lesson playing out in real time. Because when you connect everything, the original comment, the reaction, the confrontation, the viral clips, the alleged private exchange, and now this silence, it stops feeling like random chaos. It starts feeling like a turning point, not just for the situation, but for King Harris himself. And that's where things get even more intense. Because if he really does see it now, then the real question becomes, what does he do with that understanding? Does he move differently from here? Does he respond in a way nobody expects? Or is there still another piece of this story waiting to drop that flips everything all over again? Because one thing is certain, we still don't have the full picture. Not even close. And until we do, this story isn't slowing down, it's still building. At this point, one thing is becoming impossible to ignore. Everything we've seen so far might not even be the full story. And that thought alone changes everything. Because if that's true, then this Sidwa Tian isn't just ongoing, it's still unfolding in real time. Not over. Not resolved. Not even close. In fact, the more you zoom out, the more it feels like we're not watching the aftermath of something, but standing right in the middle of it. And if even half of what's being whispered online turns out to be accurate, then the next move in this situation won't be loud. It won't be chaotic. It might not even go viral immediately. But it could be the one moment that completely flips everything. So now the question shifts. Not just what happened, but what did King Harris actually see? And whatever that realization is, does it calm everything down? Or does it ignite something even bigger than before? Because if there's one pattern this entire situation has shown us, it's this. Every time things look like they're cooling off, something else hits. Something unexpected. And that's exactly why people are paying closer attention now than they were at the beginning. Because nothing about this has followed a normal pattern. A comment turns into a narrative. A narrative turns into pressure. Pressure turns into confrontation. And confrontation turns into viral footage that nobody can fully agree on. That's not random escalation. That feels structured, even if nobody wants to admit it out loud. And now, after everything that's happened, the algorithm comment, the face-to-face moment, the leaked clips, the shifting interpretations, and that quiet, almost mysterious line from King Harris. I see it now. The internet is stuck on one thing. What does that actually mean? Because that line is doing more damage than any insult or confrontation in this entire situation. It's short. It's vague. But it feels loaded. Like something clicked behind the scenes that nobody else has access to. And that's where the theories start splitting even further. Some people believe it's simple, just emotion catching up after the moment. A realization that things went too far. A cooling off reaction once the intensity faded. But others aren't buying that at all. They think that line suggests awareness. Understanding. Like King Harris didn't just react to what was said. He started recognizing how it all unfolded. And once that idea enters the conversation, everything changes again. Because now people aren't just debating a confrontation. They're questioning the entire structure around it. Was this truly spontaneous? Or was it shaped by timing, attention, and public reaction from the very beginning? Think about it. A single comment gets picked up online. The internet amplifies it. Pressure builds from every direction. Reactions get clipped, reposted, analyzed. Then suddenly, a face-to-face moment happens at the exact time everyone is watching. And then, just like that, footage leaks. Reactions that look small at first, but feel different after rewatching. Even background voices in clips are being picked apart like evidence. And the deeper people dig, the less clear anything becomes. For every interpretation that supports one side, another detail contradicts it. For every proof, there's a counterpoint. And that's exactly what's fueling the chaos. Because uncertainty is what keeps this story alive. Meanwhile, King Harris's silence is becoming its own storyline. No long explanation. No breakdown. No attempt to fully control the narrative. Just distance. And that silence is being read in two completely different ways. To some, it looks like reflection, stepping back, avoiding escalation, letting emotions settle before speaking. To others, it looks like realization, like he saw something in that moment, or after it, that changed how he views the entire situation. And if that second interpretation is even partially true, then everything that happens next could look completely different. Because once someone stops reacting emotionally and starts observing instead, their entire approach changes. And that's what makes the next phase unpredictable. Something clear enough to settle the confusion. But the longer the silence continues, the more unstable the narrative becomes. Because in situations like this, silence doesn't end speculation, it multiplies it. And right now, speculation is everywhere. Some believe more footage exists. Some think private conversations already changed the direction of the situation. Others are convinced that what we've seen is only a fraction of what actually happened. And every new theory pulls the story further away from clarity. So now we arrive at the real tension point. If this wasn't just a reaction, or just two worlds colliding in real time, with no one fully in control of how it unfolded. Because that's the uncomfortable truth at the center of all of this. Nobody actually has the full picture. Not the fans, not the commentators, not even the people breaking down every clip frame by frame. And until something new drops, something undeniable, something final, this situation stays exactly where it is. Unfinished, unsettled, and still ding. And if the next piece of footage, statement, or leak really does surface, then everything we think we understand right now could shift overnight. Again, just like it already has. So the only real question left is this. When that moment comes, are people actually ready for what it reveals? Because based on everything so far, it doesn't look like this story is slowing down anytime soon.